So Phil, I think I know everyone else here, but where in Shandaken are you coming
I'm
from?
up in High Mountain.
Cool.
And you're from Phoenicia?
Pine Hill.
Pine Hill?
Yep.
Where in Pine Hill?
Right on
Oh.
Main Street.
On Main Street?
Yeah.
Turn your mic on, Casey.
Yep.
Okay. So we're gonna start the meeting of the Shandaken Housing Committee. This is our first ever meeting, so if you're watching at home, we're gonna go slow. But I thought maybe we go down the line and say our names and where we're from, and that'll also be our attendance for today. And if there's other procedurals that we need to follow going forward, we will. I'll start. I'm Sophie Grant, live in Shandaken on Fox Hollow.
Sarah Byer in Pine Hill.
DC Vella in Phoenicia.
My name is Roz Stengel, and I'm in Pine Hill.
And Phil Monis up in High Mountain, New York.
Great. So everyone's here. I do want to say, and we'll talk obviously as a committee about how to go about this, but we are permitted to be more than just 5 people. And I definitely want to start putting out the message that anyone who is interested in the topic of housing in Shandaken, particularly any local people who grew up here, potentially are wanting to raise a family here and are affected by the housing crisis, young, old, local, born and raised or not, people who have, insight and time that they want to share, I think. More importantly, but just in general, having a diverse set of voices on our committee, and would love to see it grow if that opportunity presents. We are advised not to get too big, because too big of a committee can be too unwieldy, but we definitely want to get things done with people who have a vested interest in seeing that success. So putting that out there. So I was also going to say a land acknowledgement. I don't know what anyone thinks about that, but just start by acknowledging that we're meeting in the indigenous lands of the Esopus tribe, of the Lenape peoples and communities. And before any of us were here, there was a whole world and civilization. And also give space to acknowledge that as a transplant, I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, that also there are local people in Shandaken that have lost land to maybe New York City, to conservation, to potentially transplants like myself, to developers and short-term rentals. Not that I'm stating an opinion of this committee, but I just want to acknowledge all of those things as we talk about the topic of housing, which is very complex and has a lot of impact on our day-to-day lives, livelihood, our town, flourishing, etc. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to note. We were all given access because we're part of this county plan, the Ulster County Housing Smart Initiative, Community Initiative. There's a lot of letters. And so we're kind of following their set of guidelines. We meet with them quarterly, and they're a resource for us in so many ways that we'll explore. And, it's kind of our job to take all of that and work together and figure out how to help advise our town to create more housing, more affordable housing, more long-term housing, and just think of creatively plans for the future, but also thinking about where we are right now and what opportunities we have right now for our specific community, for the fact that our town is going through the comprehensive plan. We have a lot that we can do together in this moment to help see that housing has a role in that comprehensive plan and is thought about. And yeah, I think those are just opportunities. We have a lot of challenges, we have a lot of opportunities. But I just want to hear from everybody. Maybe we could like, I don't want to be the only one talking. I would love for us to start conversations about like either our relationship to housing as an entity or our relationship to housing here. But it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be like a speech, but it just, I guess, like in short, why you're here on this committee right now. Does anyone want to start? I don't want to put anyone on the
I'll
spot.
start.
Okay.
So my husband and I moved up here 7 years ago, and the director of the library in Pine Hill, so I get in touch with a lot of people, and I just hear over and over again the issue of housing and affordable housing, and so this is just something that everyone talks about, you hear about it, and it's just something that really, I don't know, hits home. I don't know why. I mean, we are lucky enough to own a house. We were able to build a house, to buy a house at a very reasonable price when we came up here. But now it's so hard, and it's just, I wish it was like affordable for everyone, and everyone, I think it should be just what's the word? A human right to have housing. And that's just something that I feel very passionate about, and so hopefully we can make a little bit of a difference here in our small community. That's it.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone?
I can go next if we're going down the line. I love this area. I think it's amazing and beautiful and has a lot to offer. And I think there has been a recent increase in interest in this area. And with that has come a lot of issues about businesses struggling to find workers, all kinds of things. And I feel that the root of a lot of them is housing. I think letting more people be able to live here affordably would alleviate a lot of the difficulties of this area. And so I'm hoping to help with that.
Here, here. Thank you, Roz.
Okay. I've been a resident up here for 50 plus years at this point, and I feel that the housing situation is a multifaceted issue. Number one, with the quantity of state land that is within the town of Shandaken, as well as the quantity or lack thereof of buildable land within the town, along with the existing zoning issues that may present issues that are hindering development at this point. And this is why we're here, to hopefully stem some good thought to move forward and provide affordable housing for people in the town.
Thank you, Phil. And do you go by Philip or Phil? Do you mind either? Phil.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so I'm an architect working on affordable housing in the greater New York City area. And I see a lot of local nonprofits struggling with, losing affordability, basically, and losing their homes. And so I've, working to provide with our wonderful nonprofit partners housing and as much as we can. And also I'm the director of sustainability at our firm. So I'm really trying to help figure out how to best house us all equitably and sustainably, resource-wise and conservation-wise. So I'm a recent transplant to Shandaken, and I'm really hoping to use whatever information I have to help us, because I have the same anecdotal firsthand experiences of how important housing is to a thriving community, no matter what environment and what its main industry is or anything like that.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Okay. And I'll also say, and then we'll see what this gentleman interested in. Myself, I am born and raised in Brooklyn, as I mentioned. I moved here right before the pandemic sort of changed everything in a lot of ways, but then also was like sort of consistent with how things have been going. And, you know, I'm someone who has potentially what could be an accessory dwelling unit, and you know, have really come to see through my experience working in hospitality, like this idea that people want to come here and work in our tourism industry and also potentially like make their lives here. That's a big reason why I came here. And I think there's this challenge that we're up against to really make that a sustainable option that could then grow the economy in other ways. So yeah, I think a lot of my experience the last few years has touched a lot of what everybody else has touched on. But I think, you know, in this scenic, protected, beautiful landscape, we have so many other challenges that other rural communities don't necessarily face. And I think we love and appreciate where we are for its natural beauty. And also, we have to work within the flood zone. We have to make sure that, you know, certain things are protected and not built on. So, you know, just how all that intersects in housing, I think, will impact our community for a really long time. And we have this great moment that we could bring our heads together. And with that, I want to say hello to this person who has come to sit. How are you? Great. Good. We were just kind of like introducing ourselves. What's your name?
Roy Dickens, live up in High Mountain.
Wonderful. Hello, Roy.
I figured I was going to see what this was all about.
Great. Wonderful. We were talking about our relationship to housing and sort of what we were hoping to.
Yep. Sophie, I'm going to also interject into this. We also have to look at what we have to do with DEP, which does provide an additional constraint,
Yeah.
another barrier that has to be looked at. Moving forward, the zoning issues within the town have to be observed further as
Yes.
well
Yes.
before we carry it too far. And I think Peter
Yes.
has mentioned this already.
Well, and you know, that is where the comprehensive planning comes in, because neither us nor them are going to actually change the zoning laws, but
Right.
together we could help inform what changes might come. So I totally agree with you, and I think the timeliness of this committee coming together
Is integral.
is directly related to that, to be totally honest. You know, I think there's just limitations as a community that we have to raise funds, get people interested in being here, and have our community, you know, not necessarily exclusively grow, but just maybe keep people here that are already here. Because a lot of people are making it work, living, you know, multi-generational households, which are beautiful in some respects, and some young families just want their own house. But we're definitely losing people in that process. But I totally agree. So I'm just forgetting that we also need to be keeping notes, so I'm gonna say that we did the introductions, you know, and do the compound. So we can definitely talk about that more in detail of like what our strategy can be for that. I think one of the first things is going to a comprehensive planning meeting. I know a few people on that committee. I think several of us maybe do. But I think letting them know that we're doing this, we want to be part of their process, and we want to help advise when it comes to housing and to how that zoning affects housing. And, you know, the biggest resource that we have to bring to that table is the access that we have to the consultants that the county is providing, right? So being part of this program, that's like one of the biggest features, is we get this long list of experts and consultants who we don't need to do individual fundraising to get, you know, pay them and get them to do anything for us. They're just part of this program. So those are people that we can bring in the mix that have been advised to us by Kai to really maybe focus on. In theory, we're to kind of establish two main priorities of what we want to accomplish. And mixed into all of that is also potentially this third thing, which according to them, I think is part of the checklist, but is like establishing your community outreach plan. So that's another thing that we could just kind of keep in the mix, but he did advise to more or less try and figure out at least one or two things you want to focus on, even before this broader community outreach part, because probably the areas that we're thinking about, we can hone in on something and help people then help us hone in on that, as opposed to making it super broad. But the Housing Smart checklist is our kind of, you know, thing that we get points for, and we get to kind of like input into the system in a way. And our short-term rental law, technically, I think already is something we could be entering. And so those are things that together we can look at with more scrutiny and look at what that checklist and submission on their website looks like, because it all goes through this portal, which I'm happy to show anybody. But I think if anyone else wants to address anything that's been on their mind, this would be a good time, and then we can kind of just, I think, you know, we need to appoint a secretary and do a little bit of other types of housekeeping so that going forward we have a little bit of structure. But yeah, I don't know. Does anyone want to, anything that you read when potentially researching this? If you haven't read anything, that's fine. But is there a particular area that you think is of interest that you want us to think about? Or
I know
talk
we're gonna-
about?
I know we want to look into state funding and county funding, but there should also be federal funding involved in this also.
Yeah.
And that might be a very positive avenue, okay? Especially when you're talking about looking at municipal improvements within the town on some of these, that would absolutely spur good residence for people.
Yeah. Yeah, do you have some names or information about certain federal funds you
I
think we
have
should
not
be
really
looking
looked
at?
into it at this point.
Okay, but that's great, because yeah, I think maybe we're thinking local and county, because that's where we're at right now, but I don't want to miss any big money out there that we could have gotten. And there is a lot of infrastructure money that has been floating around, but I don't necessarily know what those are off the top of my head. But
I think a lot of it is electrification and decarbonization type funding. I mean, from the IRA and the Infrastructure Act from the year before. But I think it definitely could lower first costs of building new housing.
Yeah. And that's sort of an area that you have experience in. Yeah, I think that's, I'm sure there's an aspect of that on the Housing Task Force checklist. So we should definitely be looking at that. Keep that on the top of mind.
I have a small announcement / question for
Yeah.
the group, if this is the right time. I am part of another project in Pine Hill that, as a part of that, has invited some folks from Brupco to come visit, and we're selecting dates, and I think it'd be great if some members of this committee could join that. So I guess, I don't know if we want to talk about dates and availability now, but I guess if you're interested
Yeah,
in
when
that,
is
it would be the last week of July, I think. The options are the 24th, 25th, 27th, or 28th.
At the community center, or?
Just in Pine Hill, looking at a few different buildings. and talking about some possibilities. But I think it would be a good connection for us to make if folks are around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who from Rupco is gonna be there?
Emily, I don't remember last names.
Okay.
Kristen and Emily Hamilton and Kristen Wilson.
And what are the dates?
The 24th in the morning, the 25th in the afternoon, the 27th in the morning, or the 28th in the afternoon, or the options being discussed.
Is that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have like a big conference that week, but earlier in the week, in the afternoon or something.
Yeah.
The Monday I can maybe do.
The Monday is a morning thing?
I think, yeah,
Oh, it is a morning.
How
Interesting.
early?
morning.
Could it be early?
probably. We can talk about the details by email. I just wanted to
Okay,
announce, set that in motion, I guess.
cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're definitely in a position to talk with them and see how we can pave.
Yeah.
Rupco to here. Okay, great. Okay, sorry, I just want to go through here. And just roughly outline so that folks understand sort of the phases that have been identified by the county in their outline. Phase 1 is understanding the housing crisis. They give estimations of time, but everything is very vague, but 2 to 3 months, but I think we can assume a little bit longer. But gathering, reviewing housing data and understanding your municipality. And I think one thing we've discussed in other conversations is something about an inventory of the housing stock in Shandaken, really understanding what we have to work with, what is potentially vacant and underused or not used, or what some refer to as zombie houses. So I think that's definitely been something that we could benefit from, just having the data to understand what our housing stock actually is. And then they identify a community-wide housing education, so using data collected and putting together a fact sheet based on a template that they provide you to really articulate what the issues are in the community. And you host meetings, which could potentially be here, or it could be elsewhere in the community if we wanted to try and get out there. But it's really establishing that line of communication. And then, so that's the first phase. We can definitely talk about what everyone's interest, where it lies, and what types of phases. And I don't think we necessarily all have to work on the exact same thing at the same time, but these are just general outline. Phase 2, prioritizing housing smart actions. So that's when we kind of look at the full list of actions that are suggested by the county to improve your housing availability. And that includes this review and prioritize housing smart actions, brainstorm others.
Did you have another copy for Roy?
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's a little messed up, but I can print mine online. I can look at it
I can
online.
look at mine digitally if
Yeah. Roy, would you like one of these copies?
Sure.
We have it if you'd like.
I'm on the comprehensive planning committee, so that's why I came here.
good.
Cool.
Perfect.
How we might.
Oh, here, take that one right there.
How things might, overlap a little bit.
Great. Good, thank you. And then there is this aspect of meet with elected officials, municipal staff to confirm. So it's, we're just constantly listening, collecting, and then reporting back what our findings are when we're really layering all that together. And then the implementation, is a mix of all of it basically, but, drafting the scope of work based on what we're actually planning on doing, who we're going to be working with, the execution. So this is what we will accomplish all the time. We'll always be ever upward. But, I think it'll be a great learning experience. I know for myself, I have not been on a committee of this type in the body of government. I think my experience lies in coordination, though, in events and in community gathering, and I think all of us are bringing a lot of skills to the table. I would like to think about, the various roles and responsibilities of our committee and who has what type of interest in doing the task force secretary. And then also, I was appointed by the town as coordinator, but this document does say we can have 2 coordinators, so I'm just throwing it out there to the group if someone feels strongly. But, we're all members, we're all committing once a month here, and then probably a fair amount of whatever it is we're really signing on as individuals to do. As the coordinator, I'll be in regular contact with the county and our secretary and probably like town people, but I think we're all like representatives of this committee, and as we meet people out in the world talking about it and making sure people know that this committee exists and that we're interested in doing a lot of good for our town, and wanting their participation at the various stages that we're going to ask for it. So yeah, but the role of secretary will be the primary support position for the coordinator to help organize, facilitate the work of the task force. So it sounds like the secretary is also doing quite a few things. But yeah, does anyone want to do the role of secretary? Which includes schedule, prepare for meetings, keep meeting notes, and support file management.
If really nobody wants to do it, I can do it.
Done.
Okay. Oh, I shouldn't have opened my mouth. Just kidding.
I mean, if no one was going to say something, I was going to say it. Roz?
Yeah, okay.
Roz.
I can manage a Google Drive.
I think Roz has a lot of capacity, and it always amazes me. But I don't think we need to really go crazy before the end of the Addams Family show.
Great. 2 weeks and then I can.
Yeah,
take-
I think we can give you that grace. Okay, so then I don't know what the formal jargon is, but okay, so maybe we'll vote for Roz, or sorry, we'll vote. Just told you who to vote for.
Can vote
I'm
yes or no.
arrested.
Yeah.
I'm voting for Roz.
Okay, we have 1 vote for Roz. Who are you voting for?
Roz.
I'll second it. Or
Great.
third it.
Great.
Okay, we hereby welcome Roz as the secretary.
Yay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Roz. Yes, we appreciate you. Okay, so I feel like in the future we're gonna have more formal agenda. I didn't really make a big structured thing. I also felt like for the first one, I thought the swearing in was gonna take longer, and I didn't really think we would do a full hour. But I do think, when's the next comprehensive planning meeting?
It's the second Monday,
Second Monday. Okay.
so it'll be a week from next Monday. Or 2 weeks from today.
And that's 7 p.m. as well, right? Okay. Okay, great. So
I can attend that.
You okay? You can attend.
I
that.
am in the Pine Hill Fire Department, and we meet second Mondays at
Gotcha.
7. So
Okay. Respect. Thank you for your service. I can go. Does anyone else have time to go?
I think I could go too.
You want to go?
Yeah.
We're interested in what you're doing just as much.
Yeah, we haven't gotten too far yet.
I've watched some of the meetings. It's fun though. Okay. All right, great. So I do think that's one key thing to just make sure that we're putting in motion. And then this RUPCO visit at the end of July, whichever day that ends up being. I think those are 2 good next
We have to just firm up a date with them, I guess, right?
Yep, I'll email out and we can state our availability.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Because they're meeting with not just us.
Not just us,
Right.
yeah.
So it's probably not just up to us.
Yeah,
but
But that is to be up in Pine Hill?
that will be in Pine Hill. Yep.
Great. Okay.
I-
were you gonna say something?
I kind of wanted to ask about just how do we kind of amplify the message that housing is lacking?
Mm-hmm.
And what can I start doing? I mean, I guess talking, the PowerPoint was great with some technical data and statistics, but it's 2 years old, I think. I mean, I know it's hard to keep all of it going,
Yeah.
but
Now, Sarah, I think Kyle Farmer had some things that were a little bit more up to date with Ulster County.
Was that
Okay.
in the
or
folder
maybe
that
I'm
we
wrong about
shared?
the date.
Can I just clarify your question? Who do you want to amplify the message to? Like
Everyone?
residents of our town or like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
generally get the people hyped about housing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's the slogan right there. Hyped about
Hyped
Hyped
it.
about
housing.
housing. There we go.
I'm writing it down, but, you know.
So one thing that is happening is PH2, which is I think everyone
Sorry.
over here.
Yeah.
I've seen all of you there. I don't know if you know about this, but there's a group, sort of a grassroots type of group between Phoenicia and Pine Hill of a bunch of residents just talking about issues in our town, and that group has a subgroup that's talked about housing quite a bit that is hoping to host a event, like a resource fair essentially, probably in the fall, details TBD, but that might be an opportunity to reach people. That has not been like fully planned out yet, but that is something that is focused on housing specifically. That's an event in this town that we could, I don't
Occupy
know,
space.
do something with, yeah, have conversations, whatever we want. Do a little
Wonderful.
survey, I don't know, anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it speaks to like what we want to communicate with them right now. If it's sharing statistics to, you know, in infographic or like buzzy, you know, I think we can do stuff like that if we want to get people aware of those types of things. I think that is cool. I also think it's like, I don't know what methods of communication we're supposed to or allowed to use. Like, can we have a Facebook page or like, I don't know, what do you think about that? Like, is there a
Yeah.
channel of communication, sort of like what you're talking about, of how we can sort of open things up for people to talk about it? Because
Well, maybe we can use the housing group, the PH2 housing group. I mean, that would definitely be an option that we have a Facebook page. I don't know about this, that would be legal.
The town has a Facebook page.
it
does.
Yeah, I just don't know what other committees, like,
Yeah.
if it, when it feels like something like this, where it's a new committee and we're trying to establish our,
One thing we could do, and I think technically community outreach is on our little checklist, so this is a great question. But one thing that's like a hopefully easy thing to start with is potentially a page on the town website. Just saying, hey, we're doing this, we're open to more people joining, here are the things we're thinking about, let us know if you have issues you want us to discuss, anything like that. So we're just a little more visible. That's pretty, I mean, I don't know if everybody goes on the town website, I certainly do. I don't know if that will reach everyone, but
yeah,
it's a start.
it is, it's something, definitely. Well, I could ask Joyce about that. And yeah, I mean, I think that could be a place to certainly share information as we get it, or share other pathways of communication that we're trying to set up.
Like you mentioned Facebook, what if somebody posted, so we have, you know, this many people looking for housing and can't find it, and we have, this is how much it costs for month to month, but this is the median income. You know, that, like, those little blasts of like,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I should have at the tip of my tongue, I feel like, when networking in the town, and just kind of, people are asking, well, why are you on the committee? Why does it matter?
Yeah. No, I think we can certainly clarify if we're allowed to do stuff like that, and or if just as citizens we're allowed to do stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, like, do we need a logo? What's our move?
Hype for housing.
Hyper housing. But yeah, I mean, there's various campaigns that I think we're eventually going to have to run. So maybe learning how to interact in that space would be good, because if we're ever trying to, collect information from people or have a survey or something, but also I think there's been proven, an existing issue, which is there are benefits out there that people here qualify for, and the connection is not made. And I think that's like a role that we can also help with, is like, as we're gaining this information, that we're sharing it, because there's obviously things as a committee we can do, but there are things individuals can do if they have help to do it sometimes, but they qualify for it. And there's definitely other groups in town, like Catskill Neighbors, or like the libraries, who are working with vulnerable groups. We can work with them.
To what extent, as a government committee, are we allowed to promote those kind of community organizations? Like, is that fine? I assume
Great
it's
question.
fine, but I don't want to.
I think we can be like reaching out and trying to make, build
Yeah.
relationships in town.
Because I definitely also see it as a pretty critical issue that there are existing programs and resources, and people just don't know how to find them, don't know that they're eligible, and so are
Right.
just struggling. Something that we talked about in the last PH2 housing meeting, which might be an appropriate task for this group, I'm not sure, is creating some kind of flow chart or like tool where you can say, I have this set of issues, like what is there that might work for me to help there's one place to look, because like if you have an issue with your home or looking for a place to live, it can be very overwhelming to look at all of these different programs at all different levels of government and different organizations, and so maybe having a unified resource where they can just go and say like what even is there might be helpful.
Yeah, I have to look back if any of this that we're talking about is like on the task force list. I don't think it's not, but I don't know in what capacity. Not like creating the actual platform, but I just mean in general, like connecting resources.
Yeah.
Because I think, it would make sense to me that we do some aspect of that, but I don't know exactly which, but we can look into it.
Is this little printout something that we're supposed to follow like precisely, or is this just an example that we could do something similar?
We could make something like this.
Okay.
If that's what you mean.
Is it saying like goals, gather information regarding key housing data in the
Right.
town of blank? Like, is that an
Right.
example goal, or should we actually just write Shandaken and do that?
I mean, check one.
Yeah.
We got number one.
I mean, maybe that is our goal, but
Yeah. I mean, in any conversation I've had with Kai, he has sort of articulated how this is a guideline.
Okay.
Like everything that they provide is guidance. Of course they want us following to a certain extent and like not going totally rogue, but I think as for that example, like nothing is really word for word. So we can interpret as we need to, and if we have questions about like what's appropriate and what's not, he's very accessible and available. So yeah, I think.
I mean, my conversation with Kai was basically, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Okay?
Yeah.
Every town in Ulster County, they're not, everyone's different. Okay? Whether you go down to Gardner, go down to Kingston, it doesn't matter, they're all different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely true, and we have our unique set of things that we're dealing with. And I think, Olive is like a recent example, Woodstock is a recent example, and I think we can be seeing what's happened, but I don't think we need to necessarily copy things as they did them either, but I think we can learn from whatever they've potentially experienced and put out there. But yeah, I think your point, Phil, about the DEP, it's like when we do this housing inventory, like there's this whole, many layers that go into that inventory of like, that place is, abandoned or whatever, but like, is it buildable? Is it gonna flood the next time it
Right.
floods?
Or why is it abandoned?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think, this process that we're going through, while it might not directly impact like the relationship with DEP or the city, I do think we're in a position to kind of show anybody who wants to look that like this is how this has impacted this community, and this is how we need to like figure out with your money how to maybe go to a new phase where maybe we don't have as much buildable acreage, but like you're also alleviating other things that prevent us from having enough housing for people. And I know it's all in the interest of environmental protection and clean water, and I'm for all of those things. I do work for Ashoka Watershed Stream Management Program. It's only been 2 months, but they know that I'm on this, so I'll say that I'm a part of that. I'm an event administrator, so I'm not anyone powerful, but it's also interesting to me how that affects all of like our municipal services and capabilities. So I think there's a lot of ways that whatever we're doing now, like this says it wants us to be on for a year, maybe we're on for more, who knows? But we have the ability to sort of help collect information that could lead to something else down the road that we need.
And we can propose consultants to do that data collection?
Yes. So that definitely, like, if let's say we wanted to identify the zoning consultants for eventual zoning changes, and like the inventory consultants, those could be kind of our two focuses, because it feels like a very foundational kind of, like to do anything else feels like we're still not going to have the information or the zoning laws that allow us to do things. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Has everyone had a chance to go through all the task force list of like the available things we could do?
The actions, yeah.
Should I read through them real quick for
That sounds good.
anyone who, where'd it go? Here. Okay, housing smart actions. Establish a community outreach campaign, create a municipal housing action plan, adopt short-term rental regulations, that's something we have done. Support development of accessory dwelling units, those are the, probably one of like our biggest growth opportunities here. Adopt existing real property tax laws, which I guess we haven't done that in a really long time. But establish rent stabilization regulations, upzoning and mandatory affordable housing, that's pertaining to the zoning laws. Adopt an affordable housing overlay district. I can't speak on that right now. Housing sites inventory and issue a request for concept proposals. That's kind of that taking an inventory step. Adopt a building energy code. That's another. Streamline development approval process. I don't know that needs to be our first step, but we'll see. Establish a housing rehabilitation program. That could be of interest to us. And create innovative housing solutions, which I think is definitely interesting to us. So, I kind of think that part of the zoning, because of the timeliness of the comprehensive plan, as well as the housing sites inventory, could be a good place for us to start, but does anyone have any other thoughts on that they want to share? Or anything else that jumped out at you and you were like, ooh, we should do that?
Did you say we're meant to have 2 focuses?
That was his advice,
Okay.
which didn't mean, you can never look, think, or talk about something else. It just meant that maybe 1 or 2 of the action items was like enough of a workload for a volunteer once a month meeting
That seems like good advice.
committee. But, certainly if we start learning something about a road we go down that feels like, oh, actually, we should go back over here, there's nothing stopping us from going back or multitasking and like doing a little bit of divide and conquer based on what the workloads are or what the interests are. So yeah, we have flexibility.
I mean, I'm not the coordinator, I'm only the secretary. But maybe for next time, we can propose 2 things we're going to focus on. We can all look
Great.
over this list and
Perfect.
think about, and maybe
Yeah.
we'll disagree about what our focus should be,
I
and then
love
we'll have
that.
lots to talk about.
I love
But I feel like that's a good next step in giving us some direction.
Some homework.
Yeah, some very light homework.
Yeah, maybe prioritize what you think are either the top 5 in no particular order, or prioritize the whole list. I think that's great. Thank you, Ron. Yeah, because each one of these things has a lot going on, and probably is like a little bit of education and a crash course in that thing. So it's just a lot to digest. But yeah. All right. So great. We were certainly not gonna identify the only things we were gonna work on today. So I think that's a good place to, I don't know, not leave things, but I feel like we're going down a road and it's gonna be complex. And, yeah, I don't wanna bite off too much more than we can chew, but does anyone else want to add anything for now? So our homework is prioritizing some of these actions.
Yeah,
Light
maybe
home-
come with 1 that you like, or 2 that you,
Light
whatever,
homework.
however it goes.
Great.
Right.
And then, yeah, and then we have the comprehensive plan, the second Monday for anyone who can join. And so that'll be on the agenda for next time. RUPCO might be the week of our
Yeah.
meeting.
So it'll either be the morning before or a few days after.
Cool. That's great.
The morning before.
Yeah.
That
Might be.
that feels,
2 in 1 day. I'll send an email, we can figure that out.
okay. Okay, great. And then just like keep digging through the materials. I know I'm still like getting familiar with everything and, let's just keep doing that. And think about outreach stuff, because either way, that's gonna be part of what we're doing. So I think that's,
One of the documents has an outreach plan, guideline, I don't remember what the word they use, recommendation, strategy thing, with various like steps and questions and angles, that I totally haven't read yet, but it's in there.
and we will have to close with the Pledge of Allegiance, because I totally failed. We did not do that to start the meeting. And I don't want Joyce to be mad at me, nor do I want to disrespect anyone or the United States of America. So if we're ready, do we have to adjourn the meeting in any type of official way? Can you tell us?
Just say, suggest we adjourn and.
Oh, do I have to?
Second, and then we'll say.
Okay, so but we'll say the pledge first, okay? So we have to
Before we
stand up.
join.
Okay, flag's over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next time we'll do it at the beginning.
and we'll be sworn in.
Okay, and so if there's nothing else right now, I move to adjourn our first meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are we reserving an hour for these or an hour and a half?
I think the next one I can imagine will be
I feel like we can aim for an hour. I believe in us.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What works for you?
Yeah.
What works for you?
That's fine.
I don't want to feel like we're rushing to keep it in an hour, but
Yeah.
also I don't want to have unnecessary long things.
Let's say no later than 90 minutes, though. I think it's fair to cut it off
Yeah.
at 90 minutes.
Unless we get a raucous crowd one day.
Yeah.
Keep them lively. Okay. Raj, I'm gonna share this with you.
Yeah, I saw it.